Ready for a deep dive into something, a topic that's universal, really. It's hypocrisy. And we're going through an interesting lens today. A fascinating Arabic book called, and I apologize if I don't say this right, Essayasa Esaa.
Yeah.
It means, and hypocrisy was beautiful.
Yeah, it's fascinating, to kind of look at this idea, hypocrisy, through the eyes of a different culture.
Hmm.
It really, I think, I don't know about you, but when I was reading this, it really drove home the point that, these flaws that we have, these human flaws, they really do transcend borders and languages.
Absolutely. And what makes this even more interesting is we don't even really know what kind of book this is.
Right.
Is it a novel? Is it a collection of short stories? We don't really know.
Yeah, it's like we're piecing together these little clues,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
interconnected stories to try to get a sense of the bigger picture of hypocrisy.
And speaking of clues and getting a sense of something, the book starts off with the narrator in a public space, overhears a phone call, a man on the phone clearly upset with the woman on the other end of the line.
Hmm.
And right away, your mind goes to judging this guy.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it's a natural human reaction, isn't it?
Sure.
I mean, we take the limited information we have and we draw conclusions all the time. That's just what people do.
But here's the twist. The woman on the other end of the line dies suddenly.
Oh.
And you see this man's facade just crumble. And there's this raw grief.
Wow.
And it leaves the narrator speechless because he had already judged him as being this hard-hearted person.
It's such a powerful illustration of how much we miss
Yeah.
when we just focus on these superficial details.
Yeah.
It's like the author's saying, like, look, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Or in this case, you can't judge a person just by overhearing a snippet of a phone call.
Right. Exactly.
There's always more to the story.
There's always more. And this encounter kind of sets the stage for a lot of the encounters that the narrator has throughout this book about hypocrisy.
Yeah, like one example that comes to mind is this character who is so incredibly vocal about the importance of reading.
Oh, yeah.
Like they won't shut up about it.
They wear their reading list like a badge of honor.
Exactly. But here's the irony. The narrator discovers that this person doesn't really read.
Oh, wow.
They love the idea of being well-read,
Oh, the irony.
but they don't actually put in the time or the effort to actually do it.
So they hold everyone else to this standard that they themselves don't even try to attain.
Exactly.
And that's a little hypocritical, I think.
It is, and it's
Oh, yeah.
something that we probably all do to some extent, I would say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've all got those areas where, we're maybe not living up to the image that we project.
For sure, we're human.
Right, exactly.
We all fall short. And it's not just personal hypocrisy. The book also looks at hypocrisy on a societal level, too.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is how the author highlights the pressure to conform.
Mm-hmm.
The expectation to present a certain image to the world,
Yeah.
even if it means sacrificing who you really are on the inside.
Right. You got to fit in this box that society has created for you.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, like, how much of ourselves are we actually showing to the world?
Right. Are we all just living these inauthentic lives just to please other people?
It's a scary thought, isn't it?
It really is.
And I think the book challenges us to ask ourselves, are we part of the problem?
Right.
Are we contributing to this culture of hypocrisy in our own ways, even if we're not doing it consciously?
And that's the thing, isn't it? We love to point out the hypocrisy in other people,
Oh, yeah.
but we rarely turn that critical eye inward and examine our own lives.
Yeah, we all have our blind spots.
Exactly. And one of the things this book does so well is it uses all these different scenarios to show how subtle hypocrisy can be.
Yeah.
Like, there's this one part, it talks about a group of activists who are all gung-ho for social change. Right. And you think, oh, this is great, but
But are they really practicing what they're preaching?
yeah, exactly.
That's what the narrator starts to question.
They're all about these big systemic issues, but when it comes to examining their own behavior and whether they play a part in these very problems they're fighting against, they're suddenly silent.
Hmm. It's so easy to point fingers at institutions and say, you need to change.
Right.
But it's much harder to look at yourself and say, maybe I need to make some changes too.
Right. It's a lot easier to tell other people to change than to actually do the work yourself.
Exactly. And that's something that the book really emphasizes, the importance of self-reflection.
Mhm.
Acknowledging that we're all capable of being hypocrites,
Right.
even when we have the best of intentions.
It's like the book's holding up this mirror
Yeah.
and making you look at all those parts of yourself that maybe you don't really want to acknowledge.
It's not always comfortable, but it's necessary if you want to grow.
Yeah. And as the narrator keeps meeting all these different people
Hmm.
and having these different experiences, there's this pattern that emerges. Hypocrisy is everywhere. It's almost like we can't escape it.
Right. And then you look at the title, and hypocrisy was beautiful.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, well, maybe there's something seductive about hypocrisy.
Well, because in a way there is, right?
Right.
If you can keep up that perfect facade, that image of yourself,
Yeah.
we all want to believe it, I think, at some level at least, about ourselves.
Right.
So we buy into it.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to forget that there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
All that pretending it takes a toll.
There's a price to pay.
Yeah.
And the book talks about this scene, the narrator's at some kind of social gathering,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all these people living these seemingly perfect lives.
Right.
But you get this sense that underneath it all,
Yeah.
there's this emptiness.
It's like that saying, right?
Yeah.
The grass is always greener.
Oh, yeah.
We always think that everyone else has it figured out.
But they're just as messed up as we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And social media just makes it worse, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, everyone's curating these perfect online personas.
Yeah, it's all just a show.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, are we really connecting with each other?
Yeah.
Or are we all just playing roles?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think the book does a good job of making us think about that.
Yeah.
It challenges us to look inward
Mm-hmm.
and examine our own motivations.
Right. Are we being authentic?
Yeah.
Or are we just trying to fit in?
And I don't think the book necessarily gives us an easy answer,
No.
but it does give us a way to think about it.
Right. It gives us a framework.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things I thought was so interesting about this book was how it uses perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the narrator's constantly shifting their viewpoint,
Mm.
trying to see things from different angles.
Well, it's like in anything, right?
Yeah.
When you can see something from multiple perspectives, it gives you a better understanding of the whole picture.
Absolutely. And this book's saying, well, maybe hypocrisy is the same way,
Yeah.
that sometimes we're being hypocritical,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily because we're trying to be malicious,
Right.
but because we just don't understand where the other person's coming from.
Yeah, we lack empathy.
Exactly.
We don't even try to see things from their side.
And this book is urging us to do that, to try to understand the why behind someone's actions.
It's not about agreeing with them
No.
or condoning bad behavior.
Right.
It's about trying to bridge that gap between us and them.
It's about recognizing that we're all just human beings.
We all have our own stories,
Our own struggles.
our own reasons for doing the things we do.
And maybe that's how we start to overcome some of that hypocrisy.
Yeah, by trying to see the world through someone else's eyes.
Yeah, to have a little more empathy.
Exactly. It's not about saying, oh, it's okay to be a hypocrite. It's about recognizing that we're all flawed individuals.
Right.
We all make mistakes.
And that brings us to a big question that I've been thinking about. If this hypocrisy is so baked into everything, into who we are, into society, can we ever really escape it?
That's the question, isn't it?
Is authenticity even possible?
I don't know if there's an easy answer to that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that this book doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Yeah.
It's not like, here's your 10-step program to eliminate hypocrisy from your life.
Right.
It's more about making you think about it
Yeah.
and wrestle with those tough questions.
It's a journey, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you reach some point and suddenly you're free of hypocrisy.
Exactly.
It's something that we have to constantly work on.
And it's a journey that we all have to take for ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's also important to remember that we're not alone in this.
Yeah. This book makes it clear that these personal struggles that we have with hypocrisy,
Mm-hmm.
they're also tied to all these societal expectations and pressures.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about looking inward.
Right.
It's also about recognizing how those external factors are influencing us.
It's about finding that balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
between working on yourself
Yeah.
and also pushing for change in the world around you.
You know what's interesting about this book, even though it's all about this kind of heavy topic of hypocrisy,
Yeah.
it doesn't leave you feeling hopeless.
No, it definitely doesn't.
If anything, I feel a little bit hopeful.
Me too. I think it's a call to action.
Yeah.
It's like the author saying, hey, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Hypocrisy is a real problem, but that doesn't mean we can't do anything about it.
It's like they're saying, be more aware, be more understanding, and
Mhm.
try to bridge that gap between what you say and what you do.
Exactly.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into this fascinating book, and Hypocrisy was beautiful, I think that's a great place to leave it.
It is.
Be more aware, be more understanding, try to be better, and recognize that we're all human.
I think that's a great takeaway.
You're going to screw up, you're going to be a hypocrite sometimes,
It's going to happen.
but we just have to keep trying, right?
Absolutely. That's all we can do.
Thanks for joining this deep dive with us today, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Love what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with others. Your support fuels the journey for more awesome content.